And welcome to Jeff and the Rabbi. Well, on the show many times, I think we've discussed progressives versus normal people, things like that. And I always try to hide I don't want to be an open guy. I try to hide my opinions. I want to make like I'm neutral, but I want to let everybody know.
Everyone is really, don't shatter their bubble by letting them find out that you're really not neutral, because everyone knows that you're like the most impartial, straightforward, balanced guy that there is.
Right, and I've been known for that my whole life long. But I'm going to come clean today.
That's why your fans love you.
Yes, they do. Get a lot of letters. I'm going to come clean today. I don't get progressives. I don't get it. I mean, listen, the progressive argument I think is a brilliant one. The argument is, listen, we're fair. We like everybody. You don't. You're a toothless redneck, pretty much. I've been called that before. I went to Alabama. The reason we want the destruction of marriage is because there's no difference between a man liking a man and a woman liking a woman. We should all be the same. He wants to wear a dress, so he's a woman if he says he's a woman. And if you disagree with us, you're not only unfair and mean, but you're stupid. And the argument is great.
Deplorable.
Deplorable. Right. I got to use the right word.
Right.
But the argument works because nobody, especially if I'm in the Northeast, wants to be called deplorable.
Right.
I'm not stupid. I'm going to march along and say that, okay, that's a woman if you say that's a woman. And I get it. It's a brilliant argument. And, we're fair, whatever. The only place I think the progressive argument just lacks all logical sense is when you come down to the Jews and everything. The Jews always cause this one little problem with everybody here. Why in the world, especially...
How come we speak about the Jews so much on
I know.
this show? I don't really
get it. We need to branch out a little bit more. We really do. But while we're on this subject, while we're here, I mean, we're at a point where the progressive left, especially in the last 8 years or so, is so openly anti-Israel. I mean, on the campuses, in everywhere you go, in the government, we hate Israel, with flags, burning Israeli flags places. And at the same time, they are pro-Islam. Now, what doesn't make sense to me, that if you happen, like the Palestinians will go into Israel and stab them with knives, shoot them with guns, shoot missiles at them, blow up, and our government will say, you know what, Israel, you need to restrain yourself. It's clear something's going on. The problem...
They're only reacting that way because they're oppressed.
Yeah, well, and that's what they say. Okay. And so the problem with their argument is, over in America, the progressives are pro-gay rights. Women, oh my God, they might be making 97 cents on a dollar to a man. Something's wrong. I don't get it. We're an unjust country. Why won't you pay for the birth control? What's going on? Choice. They should have a choice to do what they do inside a woman inside their body. In almost every Muslim country today, if a woman makes the choice to drive a car, she'll probably be stoned the next day. If the woman makes the decision to go out in public, either without her burqa covering her eyes or where there's 3 men and she's the only woman, they're probably going to cut her head off. So she doesn't have much choice there. If a guy decides to leave his home in a Muslim country wearing matching heels to his burqa, he's going to get killed before he makes it down to the next street. A gay guy's going to get thrown out of the window. So this is where it gets me, the calisthenics that a liberal has to do to say, I am pro-Islam, but I'm anti-Jew. We'll stand up and they'll scream it. They'll wave the ISIS flag, but it doesn't make any sense. So, knowing you for so many years now, every time I come to one of these conundrums, you come back with the same darn answer. Let me get the Torah out. Let's get the Torah out, and there's going to be a reason to explain this inexplicable situation.
Right.
Am I right? Are you going to come up with something like that?
Well, we only do the inexplicable ones because all the explicable ones, you don't need the Torah for. You can figure it out yourself.
That's a good point.
The Torah only steps in when you're really up against the wall and you can't figure it out, and then lo and behold, there it is. Because there's real logic to that, because that means that you've used all of your human mental capacity. You've got to take it as far as it can go, and you just can't get it.
I'm stuck.
Right. And that's where the Torah steps in, because the Torah comes from outside of this whole human realm. Anything that's inside the human realm, I didn't need God to tell me that.
That's a good point.
Right? So, we're doing just fine. God doesn't need to give us information we already know. What he needs to do is provide information we don't know. Lo and behold, there's the Torah.
There we go.
First of all, let's talk about progressives. That word, progressive. Now, this is a really neat word, because whoever hijacked that word...
Brilliant.
That is the most brilliant
Oh.
thing. Because when you talk about a progressive person, for example, he says, we want an agenda where anyone can marry anyone. Doesn't matter your sex orientation, nothing, right? And that is progress. Progress means moving forward. Now, others could just call it change. But if you call it change, then change could be good or change could be bad.
But when you're progressing,
progress, well, you're just progressing. But even more important, progressives, meaning there's got to be like a forward point. There's a goal.
But even more importantly, before you get that, what the brilliance about the word progressive is means you're progressing, but I'm not.
Right.
that's I think the more important part about it. I'm stuck here in the Stone Age, but you're progressing.
You're regressive.
I'm regressive, right.
Yeah. So the progress tells you that there is an end point, that there's somewhere where we're headed to, because otherwise how can you call it progress?
True.
Again, it's just change, right? Anything, if you want to change, up until now, we only let men marry women. Now we're going to have men marry men. Okay, so that could be called change. That could also be called progress. If it's progress, then that means there's a continuum, and then there's like a beginning point and an end point, and you're moving towards the end point.
Right.
Right? The goal line. There's got to be a goal line, otherwise you can't be making progress.
True.
Okay? So that means that they presume that there is an end point. And what is this end point? It's really interesting. They have this vision that there is going to be this end point. What's going to happen at this end point? Everyone is going to love everyone. All creatures will be equal.
Kumbaya.
Everyone will be, and no one will look down on anyone else or discriminate against anyone else or deal harshly with anyone else. Matter of fact, there will be no violence. There will be no violence. There will be no borders.
Imagine all
There'll
the
be no
people
violence, right?
living life in peace.
And there will be probably be no religions, because religions is just like foster hatred and all that type of stuff, So this beautiful idea. Now, interestingly enough, so that is the view of Sharon Goldstein, right? Sharon Goldstein, who lives in San Francisco, and she's, so she's a progressive.
Right.
Now, but interestingly enough, that also happens to the view of Abdul el-Rahmim al-Saadeh, right? Who happens to be living somewhere in Iraq right now, and he's fighting the holy war trying to establish the caliphate.
Talking about some problems here. There's some irony.
He also believes that they're going to establish this caliphate, and the whole world's going to be Muslim, and it's going to be a great brotherhood because everyone's going to be forced to be Muslim.
Right.
The people that didn't want to be Muslim, they're all dead. So everyone is left. Everyone loves each other. Because all the others they're all dead now.
That's a good way to do it.
Right. And they're going to wipe out everyone. And fascinatingly enough, they both detest one thing. There's one thing that they share in common, and that is Israel. They hate Israel.
That is the truth.
They hate Israel. It is amazing. Even though,
That dirty
like you
word
said,
Israel again.
if you want to get an abortion anywhere in the Middle East, you have to go to Israel. If you want to march in a gay parade anywhere in the Middle East, you can go to Israel, right? The people, even the Arabs who live in Israel, have more rights. Even the ones that live in the West Bank, even the ones that live in Gaza, have more rights than any Arab and a better standard of living than any Arab living in any other Muslim country, period. I mean, maybe, except for maybe the Oman or Qatar or something like that, right? But, where the masses live, certainly they have nothing compared to the way that Arabs are living in Israel. And yet, the progressives hate Israel. What's going on?
It doesn't make much sense. This is one I cannot figure out.
Okay, so here, let's try a model. Let's try on a model for size. We have 3 patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Each of those patriarchs, there's a good side to them, and they have a positive attribute. Let's put it this way.
Right.
There's a negative side to their positive attribute. Now, we want to winnow out the negative side to their positive attribute, so we keep the positive.
Correct.
So you have Abraham. So Abraham is loving kindness. Now, loving kindness has a good side to it. It does acts of love and kindness for other people.
Right,
It also could be a bad side because, let's say, I show up at your house and I just love you to pieces, and I all of a sudden come into your house unannounced, and I start telling you what I think you should eat, and how you should live, and what you should do. Offer your best.
Oh, wow.
That food you're eating, it's not healthy. You could love a person to death. You could get right in their face. You can intrude on them. You can tell them you can't do the things you want to do. You could really stomp on them in the name of love. So there's negative love and there's positive love. Okay? So Abraham has a son, 2 sons. One son is Ishmael. And Ishmael, he's got the negative love. He's in your face. That's what the Torah says. He's in everybody's face. And he is very, very kind and very giving and very hospitable. And yet, he can't recognize anyone's borders, and he steals from other people because he can't recognize that where you stop somewhere and I begin other. Right? He can't do that. So he is rejected from Israel. He takes away the bad of Abraham's loving kindness. Okay. So now it's out.
Okay, that makes sense.
Now along comes Isaac. Isaac, who inherits only the good of Abraham's loving kindness, he has another attribute, and that is the attribute of justice. Now justice is really good, because justice makes justice, and people don't get harmed and everything. But there could be bad justice also. There could be bad justice which would say, for example, you don't deserve a break. You only deserve what you get. You can really be, there's a certain Nazi type of justice.
That's true.
You're weak, you're an orphan, you're a widow, you're mentally incapacitated. Well, then you don't deserve it. Justice, gone. Right? So there could be a real harsh form of justice. Isaac has 2 sons, Jacob and Esau. And Esau is he's a Nazi, basically. Yep. So Esau takes that negative part of justice, and he is rejected from Israel, and Isaac inherits the good side. Okay, now along comes Jacob. Now, what is Jacob? Jacob is a combination. Jacob is called truth, because truth is a combination between the love of Abraham and the justice of Isaac. Mm-hmm. So he is a truth, he's a combination of the two. But you know what? There has to be a negative side to the combination of the two also. So a negative side to the combination of the two would actually be someone that would exhibit the traits of both Ishmael and Esau. A joining of Ishmael and Esau. Right. Because if Jacob is the positive of Abraham and the positive of Isaac, and someone's got to take away the negative side of him, then that would have to be the negative of the combination between Abraham and Isaac, and that would be a combination between Esau and Ishmael. Well, guess what? We read in the Torah that it said Esau hated Jacob. And he said, when my father dies, I'm going to kill him. Right. Then it says, he went and he married Ishmael's daughter. That's strange. What are you going to marry Ishmael's daughter for? And what does that have to do with the fact that he hates Jacob? Right. Well, what happened was Ishmael went up against Isaac. He tried to get rid of him, but he got booted. Esau went up against Jacob. Right. Esau, next generation, went up against Jacob. Jacob got the blessings, and Jacob skedaddled out of there and he got away. He escaped. Esau says, what we need to do is, he beat me and he beat you. Let's combine forces. Mm-hmm. We'll combine our forces.
He says this to the descendants of
Ishmael. That's right. We need to combine you and me. Now, it's really interesting because Esau, he's not a God-fearing guy, right? No. Esau, he just wants to let it be and do whatever you want, however you want, wherever you want, right? Esau actually is the one. Esau's really interesting. Esau is the one that wants to make things happen in this world. Esau actually believes in civilization. Esau wants to civilize this world. Ishmael is kind of non-civilized. They don't really like to get tied down. They live in more of a desert. They're sort of classically nomadic, roaming. Esau is civilization, like Rome. the structure of Rome,
Right.
the city, the markets, the aqueducts, the rule of law and everything like that. Asa believes that he settles the world.
Right.
But you would think that Asa would be the exact opposite of Ishmael, who's like this wild guy that can't stand any structure. And yet the two of them join together. Asa marries Ishmael's daughter, and then he says, he hates Jacob, and he wants to go after him. What's going on between these two? These two, they bring together these two opposite forces, which is really, really, really very, very dangerous. Particularly when Ishmael, who's kind of a wild man, has the technical ability and know-how provided by Esau. Once upon a time he was a wild man, and he just was wandering around the world.
Now you bring in Esau.
Now he's buying Esau's technology and Western know-how and ability.
There we go.
Right, and he's all of a sudden getting really sophisticated.
It's like that Iran deal that we're making.
Yeah, right. Like sort of like, they really can't really build their own nuclear weapons, but if someone helps them out, and they can buy a little Western technology. So the West and in this case the Persians are a classic example of that, of joining those two together, and that becomes a real dangerous mix, because you got a wild man who's out of control, utilizing the power of the sophistication of the West, which is developed from their society and civilization and universities and so on and so forth. It's dangerous stuff. Now, who is this? Who's the other son of Jacob? Jacob had 12 sons. They're all good.
Yep.
So we're told there's a great Rabbi, Eliyahu of Vilna, called the Vilna Gaon.
Oh, I know him.
And he tells us that when Moses left Egypt with the Jews, there's a bunch of people that weren't Jewish, but they wanted to join in. They're called the mixed multitude. And Moses took them along for the ride. He said, okay, you guys who really want to join in, you can join in. And they joined in. And as the years went on, they just assimilated into the general fabric of the Jewish people. But they really come from somewhere else. They're not really descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They're sort of like outside. It's they who are actually an agent. They are inside of Israel. They look, for all intents and purposes, like Jews. They've been around inside the Jewish people for years and years and years. They look like Jews. But they really are undermining the Jewish people, and they really are intending to bring them down.
Sharon Goldstein.
In comes Sharon.
No one knows Sharon Goldstein.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to be getting all this hate mail from Sharon Goldstein from San Francisco.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So, okay, Sharon, for you, change the name to Marsha.
Right.
Okay. So the story is that these people are also inside the Jewish people, and in the end of days, we see that before the end of days, these two forces are going to unite. There's the force of Esau unites with the force of Ishmael.
Right.
It's actually, though, it's a body of people that are within the Jewish people. That would be a progressive thought uniting with Ishmael, even though the two of them are the oddest bedfellows there ever could be, because one of them is so uncivilized and the other is so civilized, and yet each of them alone realizes that they haven't been able to accomplish what they accomplished. They find unity in their common hatred of who? Of Israel. They want to take out Jacob. And of course, that's Jacob's challenge, is to overcome them. The last big challenge, they overcame Ishmael already. They overcame Esau already. Now they have to overcome this combination of Ishmael and Esau. And actually, and where does it come from? From their own midst. So, for example, people who would say there are things that are actually antithetical to the Jewish people, but they promote those things within the Jewish people. We need to be more open. Oslo didn't work. You know why Oslo didn't work? We didn't give enough.
Give enough land. Got to
We
give
didn't
more.
give them enough, right? So there are newspapers that are famous. Anyone wants to probably read this? There's the Haaretz newspaper.
yeah.
You can pick that up, and that is a organ of this thought, right? They will find the Jews do
Similar to the
something.
New York Times.
Yeah. They will do anything. Jews do anything, they'll find the negative side, and they're Jews. And they're Jews.
And every time you turn on the TV and you're watching, and then when the progressive opinion comes up, there's Sharon Goldstein or Billy Schwartz or whatever it is.
That's right.
How can you be saying that?
That's right.
And that's who he is.
Right.
He is.
And so someone comes along and he says, you know what? We got to block out all these Muslims until we can figure out what's going on. No, you can't do that. Why can't you do that? It makes perfect sense until you can figure out what's going on. It makes sense. I've even heard Muslims say that this makes sense. But no, it can't be. Why are they championing the Muslim cause? Why are they championing bringing in people that force their wives to dress in a regressive fashion, that don't want to give, the equal opportunities and all the things
Which
that they
believe in.
Right, which they believe that's what they live for.
Right.
Why are they championing these
Coexist.
people?
We believe in everybody.
If anything, they should have been the ones that said, we can't allow any of this Muslim thought in our country until we can vet it first and figure. They should have been the ones
More
that said
logical,
that.
right?
But no, because they have made common cause, and the common cause that they both have is really to destroy Jacob. That is what they're after. And that's why they want BDS, they want to diversify, they want to censure Israel, and so on and so forth. It goes down and down the line.
But, but you still got to figure out, I guess it's something they can't help, because what's the end game for them? What do they think the end game is?
They both do believe, which is really interesting because Jews believe this also. They do believe that the world is coming to a point. As President Obama talks about the arc of history, and he says the arc of history is towards this progressive vision. He talks about the arc of history. I guess the arc of history maybe with the election of Trump got a little bit...
The arc's not totally
bent. The arc got a little bent there,
right.
crooked or whatever. But he talks about the arc of history. He believes in it. John Kerry told all the college students at a commencement address, prepare to live in a world without borders. War is not the answer, and so on and so forth. And yet, we know that, historically, there have been times when war is the answer. And in the future, there probably will again be times that war is the answer, because although we do believe in an endpoint, the interesting thing is the way the Jews pursue the Messianic vision is completely internal. If I'm going to be, instead of trying to make the world more accepting and more loving, I try to make me more accepting and me more loving, and I work on me being a better person. It's all about me, because I believe, the Jew believes, that ultimately God is going to bring about the Messianic era. He wants me to take care of me, make me a better person, and when that Messianic era comes, it's going to happen. God will take care of it. Whereas if you're a progressive, you believe you have to make it happen, and therefore, if somebody doesn't want to make a wedding cake for two men that want to marry each other, you have to drive them out of business. You have to shut them down. Right. Or actually, like a friend that I have, whose business is suffering because he lives in a northeastern state, right. And he let it be known to his customers that he supported Donald Trump. Ooh. And they got on, they're making a whole big Facebook campaign against the guy, and he had a very popular restaurant, and he's suffering now. He's
suffering. Wow. So what we need to realize when we see, like in those northeastern states, when they show that map, and you see those little teeny blue dots amongst all the red, that's where the mixed multitude Ishmaelites are living right there. And then because people say, listen, you're Jewish, how can all the Jewish people be voting? They say to me all the time, be voting for Democrats. They don't like Israel. That confuses them so much. Right. I say, listen, I'm confused now. Maybe I'm less confused today, though.
Right. So there is, what you really have to understand is within Israel, there's a strain that's actually anti-Israel.
No doubt about that.
We've classically called that the self-hating Jew. I'm just giving it biblical terminology, the mixed multitude. And where did they come from? They joined in when they left Egypt. And they have been in. They're not really Jews. They don't really pursue a Jewish agenda.
So were they Ishmaelites or were they Esauites, if that's the way to say it?
Yeah, so what they are is really, they are combining the combination of the two traits.
Okay.
So the progressive traits are really the Esavites.
Right.
Of course, the ISIS caliphate type guys are certainly the Ishmaelites, and the two
Great
seem to make
mix.
common cause.
It's like, yeah, you just don't picture that mix, but I guess it's there because it's,
Yeah.
hey, for our own demise. Well, this is actually interesting. Now I know, I know what to call people from Ellen. I don't think they'll understand if I call them an Ishmaelite or a Esavite or a mixed multitude, but I might do it anyway.
Right. But it's good to know and to see where when you identify the mixed multitude, and it's also therefore good to not buy in to that agenda and to stick to an agenda of what's good for you, what's good for a Jew, and to try to be a good Jew, and to not to say, well, what we need to do is we need to, let's say, pander more to their agenda, or try to be more of this or more of that, more progressive than the progressives, more, or to, let's say, I'm going to try to love and give more to Ishmaelites. It's not going to help.
Not going to work.
They're not going to be satisfied.
So it's better if you have a bumper sticker that says exist rather than coexist.
Right.
So let's just exist for a
Right.
little bit.
Right. And this is, making a deal, for example, with Iran on the assumption that they will always pursue their own best self-interest and they'll put aside violence.
That's
It's a
absurd.
gross misunderstanding of what their primary motivations are. That's the bottom line.
Well,
They
maybe
just
it is
misunderstand.
an understanding, as you said, and maybe that's the goal.
Yeah, right. That's right.
Either way, this is very informative.
Yeah.
I get it now. I feel like I've been enlightened. I've learned something.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, next week, you might learn more.
Yeah.
Come on back. It's Jeff
Okay.
and the Rabbi.